Welcome to the Financial Flossing Podcast with Ross Brannon, guiding dental professionals to a brighter future. Ross Brannon is a financial advisor who knows it's not just about your teeth. He helps dental practice owners protect and maximize today's cash flow to plan for tomorrow's cash needs. Find him at rossbrannon.com. On the show, he brings together experts to help dental professionals looking to make smart money decisions to grow their income, turn their retirement goals into reality, and improve their lives. And now, here's your host, Ross Brannon.
Welcome to the show. My guest today is Dr. Bill Dischinger. Bill is an orthodontist operating out of Lake Oswego, Oregon, and he's been working in orthodontics since 1999. His clinic, Dish Smiles, offers a number of different treatments to patients of all ages. Bill, thanks for coming on the show.
And my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit how you got into orthodontics.
Well, like a lot of people in dentistry, my dad was an orthodontist. Second career for him, he was actually an NBA basketball player for 11 years. And
all right, stop, talk. Well, yeah, I'm a sports guy. Tell me about NBA basketball.
All right. Well, he was not just an NBA basketball player. He was Rookie of the Year in '63, won a gold medal in 1960. He was on the team with Oscar Robertson, Jerry West, Jerry Lucas, those guys. Their team's in the Hall of Fame. So he was, he was something else.
What was his name? What's his name?
Terry Dishinger.
And what team did he play for?
So his rookie year was the Chicago Zephyrs, who then moved to Baltimore and became the Bullets, which is now the Washington Wizards. Played there for 3 or 4 years and went to Detroit, played for the Pistons. And then his last year finished up in Portland. And that's how I wound up in Portland, Oregon. So awesome.
So you're the son of an orthodontist kid.
Yep. And never thought I wanted to do that. I mean, stick your hands in people's mouths. That's disgusting. Who would have ever wanted to do that growing up? But then after my freshman year in college, he had someone quit in his lab, needed someone to fill in last second. That was my summer job. He kind of said, this is what you're doing for the summer. And working there, I realized it wasn't just sticking your hands in people's mouths. It was actually owning a small business, which I was a business major at the time. And that really appealed to me. So being able to own a small business, working with people, I enjoy the interaction of people. So it actually was a really good fit. So I switched majors and the rest is history.
Well, it's one of the best benefits of owning a dental practice or an orthodontic practice is it is a business. You can do so much with it.
Exactly.
Now, you have been recognized as an expert in your field and you give lectures all over the world. Tell us a little bit about that, how it evolved, where you've been, what you do, all that.
Yeah, so my dad had developed a technique for correcting a certain type of bad bite. And so he had kind of pioneered that. And so he actually would run courses out of his office. People would come in and they would learn how to do it. He occasionally would get asked to give some courses elsewhere. And so I kind of, again, fell into it a little bit because of him. But then I worked with a company on developing some new techniques and processes and kind of helped pioneer some new stuff. And I love that. I love trying new things. I get bored just doing the same thing over and over again. So it's kind of a perfect fit for me and some of these companies to, hey, we have this new technique. Would you be willing to trial it out and see if it works and help us improve on it? So that's how I got into it was through these companies asking me to do things like that. And then just kind of found that I enjoyed teaching, and some people apparently think I'm decent at it and have been asked to do it all over the world. And I love doing it. It makes me a better orthodontist. Hopefully it helps other people become better orthodontists. And it's a great thing to kind of break up what I do on a daily basis.
So where have you traveled to give lectures?
Southeast Asia, all over the place, all over Europe, the Middle East.
Oh, wow. So this is not just like LA, Chicago, Atlanta, New York.
No. It's been great. I've gotten to see the world. It's been a wonderful thing that I've gotten to do. Yeah.
Is there a favorite place you've been?
I would say Asia. The orthodontists in Asia, first of all, they treat some of the hardest cases in the world, but just their appetite to learn and their appetite to, and their desire and their drive to become the best that they can be is really inspiring. And to see just how enthusiastic they are about getting better at their craft is really inspiring to me. So I love teaching in Asia for that reason.
Is there a specific part of Asia that you like going to?
Southeast Asia is great. I've been to Thailand, China quite a bit, Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, all those places. So, and it's funny because as Americans, we think of Southeast Asia as just Southeast Asia, but we think of Europe as all these little unique countries and cultures. And Southeast Asia is all these unique countries and cultures. And it's amazing to go in each country and see what their customs and their cultures are, and then just the different ways that they act. And of course, the food's incredible. So yeah, so I don't know if I would say I have a favorite country within Southeast Asia because they're all so unique and different and fun. But that's probably my favorite place in the world to travel and to teach.
Why do they have some of the toughest cases in the world?
So I don't know what is going on with hereditary and genes. That's a little beyond my pay grade. But typically, the people from Southeast Asia have a lot more crowding as far as just not enough room for their teeth. And they have a jaw structure that lots of times the lower jaw will outgrow the upper jaw, which is one of the hardest things for us orthodontists to correct. More in Western culture, the lower jaw tends to undergrow compared to the upper, and there's a lot of different ways to correct that are pretty easy. So it's mostly that discrepancy between the upper and lower jaws it's kind of a hard thing to correct.
Here's an interesting question for you. I read a book about 6 months ago called Breath. It's a yellow book, and the author basically said that Westerners especially are big mouth breathers versus nasal breathers. And he said mouth breathing actually causes crowding in the mouth versus if you breathe nasally through your nose more, it reduces crowding in your mouth. And he talked about, ancient cultures have all been nasal breathers, but the Western world is very much mouth breather heavy. As an orthodontist, when you hear that, I don't know, is that complete malarkey or is there truth in that from your perspective?
In my perspective, it's absolutely true. You look at the epidemic of sleep apnea within our culture, and the sleep apnea is directly related to exactly what that book was talking about. It's a tongue position thing. It's because of where we position our tongue, and it starts when these kids are infants. A lot of it's from bottle feeding. The pacifiers aren't great. And a lot of it's from our diet too. Our diet's different than what it used to be. And so these kids wind up not positioning their tongue up in the roof of their mouth like they're supposed to. The jaws don't form normally. Tongue gets in the way of the airway, so they can't breathe through their nose. So yeah.
That's absolutely fascinating because I know there's a lot of sleep stuff in the general dentist world, a lot of sleep kind of treatment. And so I was like, okay, is this guy out there or is this legitimate or not? But what I have found is that focusing on breathing through my nose myself has helped me a lot. And the book's Breath, The New Science of a Lost Art by James Nestor, if anyone's listening and they want to read it. So that's really fascinating to hear you say that. So you're pretty cutting edge, you talk about in new techniques from a technology standpoint. And this is a question I've actually never been able to ask an orthodontist, or maybe I never had the guts to ask an orthodontist. So it's a two-part question. So from a technology standpoint, I would imagine that you're fairly cutting edge, always kind of going after new technology. That's part one. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yep, definitely.
So what are you seeing out there that is new that is going to become more mainstream as things go on?
I would say there's kind of two parts to that. So I'll give you a two-part answer to a two-part question. One is the improvements of clear aligners. So like Invisalign's, kind of opened up the whole industry 23 years ago. And about 5-6 years ago, their patents started running out and other companies were able to start getting into this and also manufacture clear aligners. It's like any industry, once you get more companies involved in it, you get innovation, improvements, technology advances, and just, competitiveness improves things. So the technology of clear aligners has gotten a lot better. So it used to be if you used clear aligners instead of braces, you usually had a little bit of a compromise of your result. That's no longer the case anymore. You can pretty much treat anything with clear aligners now. Now, taking that a step further, one of the things that pushed our industry during the pandemic to get better at was virtual visits. And, we saw that in medicine, and it's just, virtual medicine or telemedicine or whatever you want to call it is, it's such a buzz thing now. In orthodontics, we've always had to have patients in our office to change their wires or put their braces on or do whatever. And I've always said I have to be in my office to make money. Now, with using clear aligners, we can see these patients virtually, and the technology is unbelievable. So there's a company called Dental Monitoring where they use a person's iPhone and the person takes these pictures within their mouth. There's this special app they hook it up to and stretches the lips and cheeks out. And then there's artificial intelligence that reads these pictures to figure out, are the teeth moving the way they're supposed to? At a certain stage, they're supposed to be at this certain point, and the artificial intelligence can figure that out. And then if things aren't quite going right, then it'll alert us that, hey, we picked up on something not quite right. You need to check on this. And then we will then go online and look at it, and then we can message with the patient. So for me, a patient that I used to see 15 times in my practice, I can now treat him with clear aligners, and I can see him 3 or 4 times in my office. So what that's doing is it's allowing us to be much more efficient within our practice. You can tell I'm kind of passionate about this. This is my new baby here.
So it would mean that clear aligners are more profitable than braces in that respect.
Absolutely. Now, there's a tipping point. So if you are just kind of dabbling in clear aligners and doing this virtual monitoring, but a majority of your patients you're still treating in braces, you're still having to be in your office all the time because you have all these braces patients you're having to take care of. So you have to get over a certain percentage, and I would say that's probably 65 to 70% of your patients you need to be treating with clear aligners to then be able to reduce either your staff or the number of days you're in the office or both to start making this pay for itself and then eventually being more profitable. But yeah, if you do it the right way and you commit to absolutely going all in, then yeah, you're going to be much more profitable in the long run.
So I have 5 kids. My oldest is 14. She's already had braces. And I'll tell you right now, unfortunately for me, but fortunately for my kid's dentist, they all look like they're going to need braces. They all look very British in their mouth, shall we say.
I'm sorry.
But like they said, my daughter was like, she wanted Invisalign. And I was like, okay, we're talking to the orthodontist about it. And I'm like, no, I'm not letting you get Invisalign because that requires you to do something. And she was like 11 or 12 at the time. And I was like, I don't want to deal with this for 3 or 4 years because you're not doing what you want and you're not doing how you're supposed to. And my 12-year-old, he's coming up next and he's trying to lobby for Invisalign. I'm like, I don't know that I think you're responsible enough to do that. As an adult, I would, but in your experience, is there an age where Invisalign makes sense? And is there an age where, there probably need to be in braces?
Our adults are much worse than our kids, actually.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, think about our kids' lives and our lives. Our kids, they're scheduled. They got this regimen every single day. So they have the parents monitoring them. They got teachers monitoring them, coaches, whatever. So adding one more thing onto their schedule, super easy for them. It blends right into their scheduled life already. And then with this monitoring that I was talking about, every single week where we're monitoring them, there's this, my mind's blanking on the word, but basically we're checking in on them. And so they have to be doing what they're supposed to be doing or they're getting caught. With adults, I don't know about your life. You got 5 kids, so I know what your life is like because I got 4 kids. Every day is a freak show. It's just like you're just trying to get through each day. Every day is different. You're running, flying by the seat of your pants. And so with adults, we tend to lose track of these things. Plus, as we get older, we just can't multitask anyways because we're just, our brains are soggy. So I find that our kids actually do really, really well. Our adults to be a little bit worse on it just because it's harder for them to keep track of all of it.
Okay, so here's the part 2 of my question. Smile Direct Club. Do you find that as competition or do you find that as almost an advocate for you where they actually need a professional to come in and help them? Because to me, it's like, okay, they took the Invisalign concept and said, let's eliminate the quote unquote middleman and go direct with the patient. What's your perspective on that? What have you seen?
Yeah, I think right now where they're at, they're not really competition to us. Like you said, they raise awareness of crooked teeth. And that's one of the great things Invisalign has done over the years is they raised awareness of crooked teeth and more people are seeking orthodontic treatment now than ever before. Smile Direct Club right now is kind of doing that. Their capacity to treat cases is pretty limited on what they can be successful at. It's getting better and they have, tons of money behind them. So they're going to continue to get better. Eventually, they will be competition to us, but right now they're not to that point, just because they're treating more of the limited cases, probably people that wouldn't come see an orthodontist anyways. Now, the way that in the orthodontic industry and the dental industry, whatever you want to call it, that we can combat against a company like a Smile Direct Club is by making aligners in-house. So by using 3D printing technology with our scanners, and we actually, instead of using a third party to make these aligners, like paying Invisalign to make them, we make them in-house for these more limited cases. And then we can price it to the level that Smile Direct Club is pricing, but yet you're getting overseen by a doctor. So we can kind of give them the best of both worlds. So that's another technology thing that we're doing in our office. We're doing in-house aligners as well for those more limited cases to be that answer to Smile Direct Club and trying to get out ahead of it.
Well, I like the fact that you're kind of being proactive here and you're not just playing defense, you're playing offense too. That's pretty interesting right there. So let's kind of change gears a little bit on the subject here. You've been in practice since 1999, so you've seen a lot of things come and go. So let's talk about the private equity, DSO, OSO world and what is going on. What is your take on everything that's happening in the industry from that perspective?
Yeah, I mean, it's growing momentum for sure. In the past, if you sold to a OSO, you typically got a lot more upfront than you would if you sold to a private doctor coming in that's going to take over your practice. That's starting to change a little bit as there's more companies out there, and as they're growing, they're not having to pay as much over basically value as they used to. So it's not quite as good a deal as it used to be for the selling doctor, but it's still pretty good in getting your money up front as opposed to getting paid over a few years by a new doctor coming in is attractive. I do think it has a place in our industry. I'm not an anti-corporate dental person. I think it has a good place and it can service patients very, very well. The worry that I have long-term is right now they're allowing doctors to still be autonomous, to still run their practices the way they want to use the treatment techniques and buy the appliances that they prefer. Eventually, though, all these corporations, their end goal is not to just continue to own all these practices. They want to sell off to venture capitalists and cash out and make $1 gazillion. And they all admit that, and which is fine. If you can go make money, go make money. It's just like pro athletes. Why should people get mad when they sign these huge contracts? We all want to make as much money as we can. So that's totally fine. But when that happens, my worry is that the autonomy that doctors are being allowed to have right now will go away, because then it only turns into a numbers game. And all it is about the maximum profit. And if we're only about profit, we're not about quality any longer. We're not about allowing you to do what you want to do. And it becomes a problem. So I think we've seen that happen with pharmacy. We've seen it, happen quite a bit in medicine. And if we allow it to happen in dentistry and orthodontics, we'll be going down the same path. So that's my long-term worry. So personally, I'm trying to protect against that and not be a part of it. Again, not that I'm anti, but long-term, I think the best thing for us doctors and for our patients is to be privately owned as we currently are.
Well, I have 2 questions on that. Number one, give the example of pharmacists that you gave when we were talking offline.
Yeah. So when I was in dental school, I started dental school in 1993. And I remember in our first class was pharmacology, and they showed us these surveys of the number one respected profession in America. And the number one respected profession in America was a pharmacist. And if you think back to when we were kids, we all knew our local pharmacist. He or she had, this little, mom and pop shop. Lots of them had like a little counter that you could order food. You had gift cards, and they worked, 10 to 5 or 9 to 5 or what, they worked great hours, and they didn't work. It was always closed on the weekends. You had to get there before Friday at 5. Private business owners. So it was a great profession. That's gone now. Pretty much every pharmacist in America works for CVS, Safeway, Rite Aid, whatever. They work weekends. They work nights. They're working all the time. They're making, a low percentage financially of what they used to. They're overworked, underpaid. And to think in any industry, to think that can't happen to them, that's arrogance. It can happen to any industry if you allow it to. And so that example to me should be a warning sign that, okay, you got to be careful. If you're chasing this dollar now, where's that profession going to be down the road? And, You were talking about a friend that you had or a colleague that you had that truly believes in paying it forward for that next generation of doctors. And yeah, maybe could I sell my practice for more money right now? Yeah, but what's that going to leave for that next doctor coming along? And we had doctors ahead of us that paved the way and left a great profession for us. Wouldn't it be great if we could do that same thing for the generation behind us?
It would be interesting to see what the inflation adjusted income of a pharmacist in 1990 is versus a pharmacist in 2021.
I think it'd be scary. It's not like they don't go to a lot of school to be there already, too. I mean, they're coming out with a lot of debt.
Because you have to obviously make sure you're putting the right drugs there. And I know what type of income they make today. It's nothing that would excite you for a lot of people. So one thing I've seen is you've seen groups of dentists, and I have a client who this happened to in the last year. It was basically a DSO of a bunch of orthodontists. They kind of started their own OSO, I guess we would say, and they're buying up practices. And it's kind of like, all right, we see what you're doing, private equity. We're gonna go do it ourselves, trying to kind of compete or counteract that, or trying to, do whatever. What's your take on that model? Do you think that is a viable model, a competitive model? What's your perspective?
I think that is absolutely the model that we have to pursue. So that's what I have a new associate that works for me. We are partnering up with another practice. We are already in the process of purchasing another practice on top of that. And that's our plan, absolutely, is to basically set up that fence, that barrier around us, where we have multiple locations that are run by just a couple doctors. Because getting back to that efficiency that I was talking about before with the technology we have, we can run 6, 7, 8 locations with just 2 or 3 doctors now. And we can basically be our own corporation. And what it does is it gives us options down the road. If this is where our profession is going to ultimately go and we have no choice, we have this big kind of valuable asset then that we can sell if we have to. That's not our goal. That's not what we want to do. We want to set it up to stay private and to let the next generations then continue that. But yeah, absolutely. Like you were saying, I think that's, if you want to survive, not just survive, but survive successfully, I think that's what you have to do.
Because of all this going on, do you see it being a challenging industry for a fresh new dental school, orthodontic school, or specialist school graduate?
I would say it's more challenging than what I had 20 plus years ago. But to say that it's challenging compared to what a lot of professions have out there, I think is probably overstating it. It's still one of the top professions in the country. I mean, for what we do and what we get paid is pretty remarkable. Now, the cost of the education today for these, and kids is the wrong word, but they seem like kids to me, is exorbitant. And that's a whole nother discussion as far as just cost of education in America today is disgusting. But I teach at University of Pacific in San Francisco, and these graduating residents are coming out with over $500,000 of education debt. And that's insane. So you think about, and that's why these corporations are doing so well, because these residents come out, they have, $500,000 of student loan debt. They are looking to buy a home. They have to try to buy a practice. I mean, just financially, they can't do it, or they can't qualify for all these loans to make it happen. So that's why the corporations are doing better. So it's cost of education is kind of setting some of this up. So sorry, that was a long answer for, yeah, it's more challenging than what I had, but the opportunities are still phenomenal.
So let's kind of change gears here for a second. You've been doing this for almost 23 years. Your father was an orthodontist. Your son may even want to be an orthodontist. Talk about some of the lessons you've learned, some of the things that, if I wish I would have known this when I was, 28 years old or 30 years old. What have been some of the biggest lessons that you've learned, whether it's actually like clinically or whether it's like owning a business or financially or any of that?
Yeah, I mean, you're always learning. And as far as clinically, you look back on what you did 10 years ago and you just kind of shake your head and like, wow, I thought that was great treatment back then, and that would be considered terrible now, what we're putting patients through. So that's always going to be that way, as technology continually improves for what we do for treatment. So I don't really look at those and get too upset by that, because it is what it is. financially, yeah, I mean, everybody's always, oh man, if I had done this, done that. So I try not to do that too much. The one thing that I do know is true is we always spend more than we should earlier in our careers. We were talking about how long it takes to become an orthodontist. It's an additional 6 to 7 years after college. So you're behind all your friends, all your college friends or high school friends. You're behind starting life basically, and you try to catch up pretty quick. And you spend more than you should in those first few years of your career. And if I could, that's the one thing, if I could go back and live a little more lean at the start and build up that nest egg earlier on, because the compound interest going forward with your retirement funds and just everything, that would be the biggest change that I would do for sure. And then just as you manage people, you're a boss of a team that you work with, and you just, over the years, you hopefully get better at managing people and understanding people and relating to them. I think that's the biggest challenge as being a business owner, is the management of people and learning how to do that. You make a lot of mistakes along the way, and you sometimes lose good people because you were a bad leader.
Well,
so yeah,
that's the challenge. Is you learn all this clinical stuff in school, you learn nothing about finance, and you learn nothing about managing people. And I know dentists who are trying to sell a practice because they hate managing people. Mm-hmm. And it really is, it's fascinating. I've said this numerous times on the podcast, is I know dentists who earn a good living, but they really just own a job. But when you can transition from owning a job to owning a business, being a business owner who happens to be a dentist, or a business owner who happens to be an orthodontist or whatever, that's when the wealth really starts coming in, and people really start earning just incredible incomes. And to your earlier point is, I try to tell people all the time, your rate of savings is the most important indicator of financial success. Mm-hmm. Warren Buffett says the habit of thrift, i.e. savings, is the most important habit to accrue. So as we wrap up here, I have a couple last questions for you. What advice would you give a new dental school graduate?
Find a good mentor. That's number one. Find a good mentor that's been there, done that, that's been successful, not just successful financially, but successful as far as their quality of life and happiness of life. Because there's a lot of people, just period, but a lot of dentists that are very financially successful, but are not life successful. And there's a balance that you have to find with that. So find a mentor that you can, even if it's not someone that you are working with, but maybe you can at least pick their brain and have lunch with them periodically and get together with them and have them teach you that life balance that allows you to be successful both with your practice, with management of your team, and then financially, and then with your life. So that would be my number one thing, is to seek those people out. And I'm not saying it's easy to find those people, but just get out and meet with dentists in the community, and you'll quickly find who's authentic and who's not. So that would be number one. As we said, save. And, you should be living off 50% of what your gross income is. And when I say that, you're paying your taxes, you got your retirement, you got money that you're putting off into investments inside, and only 50% of what you gross make should you actually be spending. And if you can do that, you're going to be set up successfully for the rest of your life financially.
Which means if you live where I live in Florida, you pay less in taxes.
Yeah, it's hard to do that in Oregon where I live. I mean, that 50% goes like that. So, yeah. All
right, last question here. I would assume that you're a reader, being that you're all the studying you do. What's the best book you've read recently?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I have to admit, I'm not a great reader. I'm better at listening to podcasts. Usually by the time I'm crawling into bed, if I'm pulling up a book, I got 5 minutes before I'm asleep.
Right. So what's a podcast you're listening to?
Well, podcasts.
You could be like me. I have 40 I'm subscribed to. I listen to like 3.
Well, I'm a bit of an escapist, so I tend to listen to podcasts that are more fun as opposed to educational.
That's okay.
Yeah. So, you being from Florida, you'll probably laugh at this, but I'm a total Disney geek nerd. So I listen to stuff about the Disney company. And then I'm a sports junkie, so it's usually sports. You're going to have to cut that question answer from this interview because it's such a disappointment. Like, okay, what is wrong with this guy?
Well, before I let you go, so did you play basketball? What was your basketball career like?
I played basketball. Growing up, I thought I was supposed to be a basketball player.
Right.
And, I was decent. I walked on at Oregon State University and played 1 year down there and quickly learned that I was either too short or too slow, probably both, to make it at the Pac-12 level. We were Pac-10 back then. But,
how tall is your dad?
My dad, he was 6'7". He's quite a bit shorter now as he's gotten old. But he was 6'7", and he was very quick too. So he was amazing. He was a first team All-State in high school in 4 sports, not just 3 and 4: football, basketball, baseball, and high hurdles. So he was a freak.
And how tall are you?
I'm 6'2" and shrinking.
So I'm 6'8".
You're 6'8"? I'm
6'8". So nice. I actually played college football at Florida State back in the 90s when we were good. But that's another topic for another day. Yeah. So
were you tight end or what were you?
I was offensive tackle.
Okay. All right.
So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Were you there when primetime was there?
No, he was late 80s. I was late 90s. We won a national title when I was there. So it was a lot of fun. But it's a lot of fun. So
I've heard that Bobby Bowden was an amazing man.
Every good thing you heard about him is true. Yeah. So, well, Bill, it's been a pleasure talking to you today. It's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
All right, everyone. You've been listening to the Financial Flossing Podcast with Ross Brannon. We'll see you next week.
This has been another episode of Financial Flossing with Ross Brannon, guiding dental professionals to a brighter future. If you liked what you heard, consider subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. For more on Ross Brannon, visit rossbrannon.com.
Registered representative and financial advisor of Park Avenue Securities, LLC, PAS, OSJ, 3664 Coolidge Court, Tallahassee, Florida, 32311, 850-562-9075. Securities products and advisory services offered through PAS. Member FINRA SIPC. Financial representative of the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, Guardian, New York, New York. PAS is a wholly owned subsidiary of Guardian. North Florida Financial is not an affiliate or subsidiary of PAS or Guardian. California Insurance License Number 0L10073. Arkansas Insurance License Number 161-39032. 2021 119535. Expires 423. That last part can also say 2021 119535. Expiration April 2023.
This podcast is for informational purposes only. Guest speakers and their firms are not affiliated with or endorsed by PAS, Guardian, or North Florida Financial, and opinions stated are their own. Ross is a registered representative and financial advisor of Park Avenue Securities, LLC, PAS, OSJ, 3664 Coolidge Court, Tallahassee, Florida, 32311, 850-562-9075. Securities products and advisory services offered through PAS, member FINRA SIPC. Financial representative of the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, Guardian, New York, New York. PAS is a wholly owned subsidiary of Guardian. North Florida Financial is not an affiliate with or subsidiary of PAS or Guardian. Arkansas Insurance License Number 161-39032. California Insurance License Number 0L10073. 2021-130-482. Expiration 1223.